The era of AI is here. But for governments and critical industries, innovation cannot come at the cost of security. Enter the HPE Sovereign AI Factory, part of the NVIDIA AI Computing by HPE. True end-to-end AI sovereignty. Finally, you can train, deploy, and monitor AI models while maintaining control over where your data lives and who accesses it. Built for regulated environments, our Sovereign AI Factory provides compliance by design, from on-premises infrastructure to localized compliance. Co-engineered with NVIDIA, this isn't just infrastructure. It industrializes AI, turning your sensitive data into a competitive advantage. With a unified control plane, you gain full visibility into data lineage and system health, keeping AI operations secure and compliant. Whether it's enhancing national security, improving citizen services, or powering research, we help you accelerate AI with less risk. Don't just imagine a secure AI future, build it. See the Sovereign HPE AI Factory in action. HPE AI Factory. Trusted AI on your terms.
Please welcome Trish Damkroger.
Hello and welcome. I am so excited about this session because we're not going to show you any products. We're going to talk about sovereign AI, and we're going to have experts come up and tell you more about how they're deploying it. If you haven't heard the term sovereign AI, I don't know, maybe you've been under a rock. It is the hot term. And what does it mean? It means that you own your infrastructure end to end. It means that you have control not only of the infrastructure, but also your data and your AI-generated outcomes. It is really representing the largest opportunity today in AI. And why is that? It's because we've got regulations that we'll talk about. I see some nodding out there, so you know what I'm talking about. And just a huge concern about security risk. I'll tell you that AI, though amazing, has also increased security risks. I come from the traditional HPC modeling and simulation world, and I would say over the last couple of months, there have been a number of Linux issues, all generated from AI. So cybersecurity is becoming more and more of a risk. If you went to Antonio's keynote, he shared some of the stuff we're doing about control, compliance, and security. And this session is really going to talk about what we're doing in Sovereign and how we can help you stay ahead. So you'll hear about us standing up Sovereign AI factories from some of the people that are doing it. So let's first look at why is Sovereign AI important. So 40% of the global AI markets will be driven to sovereign AI by 2030. This is out of a McKinsey report published this year. It also said that 75% are making sovereign AI a part of their 2026 roadmap. Okay, so like I said, if you haven't heard about sovereign, it is the theme of the year. Not something I talked about much last year on stage. We were talking more about AI and how it was going from gen to agentic. Now it seems to be sovereign is the key. So also, in a study that we did with CXOs, 62% are concerned about their AI control in their long-term AI investment. As anybody that has bought AI systems know, they're expensive. You know, when you're putting that much of your infrastructure and capital into AI infrastructure, you want to make sure that you control that. So there's that increasing regulatory pressure, there's the scrutiny of how data is being used, and there's also a lot of concern over third-party dependency. And if that's not enough, you can get fined. So up to 35 million euros in the AI European Union Act. So there is significant fines that we're talking about, and I mean, I'll even show you later about how it's like this year they're looking at these kinds of fines and why sovereign AI is becoming so important. So what are some of the key drivers for sovereign AI? We talked about the national imperative, people, that global race. It's kind of like the new space race of who's able to do what you need with AI, because you don't want to lose either as a nation or a company for the competitiveness. There's the regulatory wall, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like and the pressure across not only geographies but also jurisdictions. And then the hyperscale paradox, which why off-the-shelf AI is very, easy, attractive, it may increase your risk profile. And so let's talk about that. So we're going to dive down into each of these. Over 60 plus nations have come up with their own AI strategies. It's about secure technology, independence. It's about strengthening their competitive nature, and it's also about controlling the AI. So part of it in the nations, they're talking about the cultural values, their languages, the things that are important to them to retain. So there's a number of initiatives like the Genesis mission. So the Department of Energy in the United States has rolled out the Genesis mission or program, and it's about taking all that innovation that we had with the exascale machines and harnessing that into making this next leap to AI infrastructure, and how that will help you help with science and discovery. There's the Canadian AI strategy. We'll talk a little bit more about that with one of our guests, but this has been around for 10 years. So impressive that Canada was one of the first people or first nations to really come up with an AI strategy and what they've been able to do since. And then, as we talked about, the European Union AI Act. So this is where a lot more of the regulatory constraints are going in. So let's talk about those regulatory constraints. So in the EU, you need to show that you have to prove where your data is and how it's governed by August 2026. Otherwise, you will be subject to fines or not able to compete in key markets. So this is something that's been around, and it's you have to show that your data is maintained within your country boundaries. So in the US, we have the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST as we call it, and they are adopting an AI risk management strategy or framework. And so a lot of companies and states within the United States are looking at that. And it's kind of the same philosophy of how do you control, how do you manage your data, and make sure that it's trustworthy and secure. So part of that is picking the right IT environment or infrastructure so that you can do that control. And again, sovereignty is about kind of three things: control, compliance, and security. So if you remember those three things, that's kind of what encompasses sovereign AI strategy. So the hyperscale paradox. So this is where, though you think going to the cloud is easy, and it can be the right solution for you, the problem is it does create more risk. And there's some of the things that we're just very aware of. So the US Cloud Act is an example where the US government can go in, has the right to go in to any server around the world to get your data. So if you have regulatory environment, or you're in a regulatory situation that means you have to keep your stuff within your boundaries, it kind of goes against that. It also talks about being able to make sure you follow all of your local country laws. So these are just issues that you can face when going into the public cloud. We're also, part of sovereignty is making sure you have controlled transport and auditable data. I mean, this is where you're going to decrease your legal liabilities and also making sure your data is free of bias. So it's important that you have a lot of, basically, data is the lifeblood of AI. And it's the most important thing that you have a very strong data management strategy. We'll talk to some of the speakers about what they've done to be able to make sure that they can do that. So it's about isolation of the data models, not only the data, but then also the AI-generated models from that data. And then the last concern that you need to think about with the hyperscalers is cost. They are renting the GPUs a lot of times that they don't, it's not always clear, especially with storage, about the cost that is going to come down. And so you just need to really think about the total cost of ownership of a system when you go in to look at the infrastructure. The cloud is an open environment. It's not, they do have multi-tenancy, but it's not always as strict as maybe a sovereign AI entity needs. So those are the drivers, but let's talk about kind of what are the 5 imperatives for standing up a sovereign AI. So there's architectural control, high fidelity data governance, scalable performance, operational resiliency, and sovereignty of intelligence. So we'll do a little deep dive into each of those. So for architectural control, again, it's not, you want to be able to control that infrastructure. Who has access to that infrastructure? Nobody should be able to get in and use your model without your permission. So you've got to have control over that. You've got to have control over the data that you put in to run on an AI model. And you need to be able to control the data that comes out of that AI model. So that's all about sovereignty. That's your control piece. The first element of sovereign AI. Okay, so you need those trusted boundaries around not only your infrastructure, but your data in and out. Data governance. So again, high fidelity data governance is key. And this is where you've got to make sure your data is trustworthy so that you can prevent biases and the legal liability that could be part of that. Your data needs to be relevant, accurate, and error-free. And that's, I mean, it's easy to say. As anybody that knows, it's not easy to do. It's one of the biggest challenges that working with our customers we find is about managing that data framework. And it's been something that we've talked about for years. It's not a new theme. But now with the regulatory environment and the drive for AI, it's becoming more and more critical that you manage your data. Scalable performance. So, I talked about last year, I talked about Gen AI moving to agentic AI. Well, AI just keeps, that pace of AI is insane. I mean, I was used to your TikTok model where you had time to kind of catch up. It was a little bit, I would say, slower pace. We are now getting new accelerators 9 months to 12 months, right? So double the frequency of getting new infrastructure. And I mean, the models, from OpenClaw didn't exist as far as I knew until this year, right? The ability to actually create your own models easily. So there is the pace of change, the pace of AI is driving us all to knowing what we want today. In 6 months, that may change. So you need to be able to scale your infrastructure seamlessly. And that is really important that you bring in, like you said, the right infrastructure and you'll be able to scale it across. Part of what we're working with a number of people are doing is they're called AI factories. And that's when you not only have the full AI stack, Again, we're talking about how to bring in new capabilities as they come available. So you're not stuck with what you bought, say, 6 months ago that's already not out of date, but already has new opportunities to upgrade. So it's all about providing that scalability and flexibility across the whole AI lifecycle. Now, operational resiliency. So your AI system is only good when it's up and running, right? If it's not working, you've paid a lot of money for pretty hardware. And I mean, I'm a geek, I like pretty hardware, but not everybody likes pretty hardware. So in order to ensure that optimal performance and really look across multi-tenancy, those multiple users, and all the different AI workloads you're going to be running across your system, you've got to work with people that understand big systems, right? You need 24/7 uptime because when you're down, you're not creating tokens. So one of the things I'm very proud of is the heritage of HPE. Coming from Cray, where we have over 50 years of supercomputing experience, of doing liquid cooling and big systems, standing up the exascale, the 3 exascale systems here in the US. And that is all part of a deep service, knowledge base, and expertise that we have within HPE. And if you go out on the show floor, you'll see the Cray one, which was at Los Alamos National Labs, was serial number 1. And it's about that 50 years of bringing those kinds of systems into our customers. And I laughed when we talk about sovereign being this new thing. We've been doing sovereign. I mean, our DOE National Labs have to have that air-gapped system. We've been doing sovereign for 50 years. It's just sovereign with AI is where we're headed today. So you really need to understand the controls and the capabilities, the monitoring that you need to make sure your system is up and running. And then last is sovereignty of intelligence. And it's like, what does that mean, right? So really, it's about the data again, and it's about making sure that you're managing the data and the models that you are using. Are you training the models, say, for your cultural values or for scientific discovery, that you're able to train within your corporate boundaries, within your nation-state boundaries, the models so that you can make sure your IP is safe. If you create your own models and you're using your own IP to create those models, or your cultural values or your language is going to continue on. So that's all about, again, making sure that you have that flexibility and you can scale your infrastructure to safely run your AI system. Again, when you're putting in proprietary data, you need to make sure that it is controlled and managed and firewalled or air-gapped or whatever to make sure that it stays within either your nation boundaries or your corporate boundaries. That's the way we can create that new innovation that's happening. So with that, it's a lot about what sovereign AI is. Again, control, compliance, and security. All right, those are those 5 directives of how to develop or what you need for a sovereign AI entity. But I think it's important, let's bring up some guests to talk about how they're doing it. So with that, I would like to talk to you about TELUS. TELUS is in Canada. It's a telecom company. And it is got the imperative to stand up an AI factory as part of the Canadian AI strategy. And so it opened its first AI factory in September. And we've had this great partnership for the last year. So please welcome Hisham Fahmy. He's the CIO and COO of TELUS. So, Canada was the first with their AI policy, so that's amazing. So, talk to us about the Canadian AI strategy.
It's actually quite interesting that we're having this question now because actually just a little over a week ago, the Canadian government issued a whole reboot of their whole AI strategy.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so they've had the pan-Canadian AI strategy since 2017, but almost 10 days ago, they did a reboot of the whole AI strategy, and it's the new formal kind of AI strategy going forward. And the general theme of it is AI for all. And so it's all about scaling AI across all of Canada. So that's scaling it across all Canadian citizens and giving them access to AI and safe AI, but more importantly, doing it across all enterprises. So they have this strategy, and it's around three key pillars. It's around trust, opportunities, and sovereignty. And so the trust part is about how do we have the right regulatory framework to make sure we're protecting Canadians from any of the harms of AI. And then on the opportunities part, this is what I'm really excited about, how ambitious they're being. They want to make sure that AI is accessible, capabilities and the tools to all of Canadians. And so they're investing in making that accessible, providing the infrastructure for it, but as well as the training. So they're doing an investment of how do we make all Canadians fluent and comfortable with AI. And they have another bold ambition, which is to increase the adoption of AI in enterprises from currently around 12% to 60%.
Oh, wow.
So again, very ambitious. And then lastly, around the sovereignty. And there on the sovereignty, they want to build dedicated sovereign AI clusters to support all of this, as well as mandating and regulating that certain sensitive data like financial data, healthcare data has to run then on sovereign infrastructure.
Well, see, the control piece, right?
Exactly.
So the regulatory companies require that sovereign AI. So Canada's imperative to build this sovereign AI, the sovereign AI factory. What were some of the reasons why? I mean, you kind of talked about it with the healthcare and others.
And I say that the government published this a week ago, but this has been going for months and months, and we've been heavily involved in seeing where the tea leaves are going. And so if you just think of maybe just two aspects of everything I talked about there, if you think of the opportunity part, if you're really going to scale AI that broadly across all Canadians and all enterprises, one of your biggest constraints is then you need to have the compute and you need to have that power.
Right.
And so then, again, to all the reasons you gave before, well, one, you just have to control your destiny. So how do you have that compute power guaranteed locally for you, and you're not dependent on any kind of foreign entities, not just about control, but even just access, like that they're prioritizing Canada over other regions. And so just from that aspect, it became the imperative of why Canada needs to invest and have its own set of AI factories just to support the ambitions we have. But then you layer that on top now, there are going to be very sensitive workloads. If you think of financial data for citizens, health data, you want to now make sure that that is truly sovereign for all the reasons you had there, which is not just residency, but it's control, and it's physical control, it's legal control, and then it's even just the control plane. I think of what happened over the weekend with the U.S. government mandating Anthropic to pull all of Fable.
Right.
I mean, that sent shockwaves because that just proved that proverbial kill switch is real. And so how do you want to protect yourself against that especially when it's your health data and your financial systems and it's mission critical?
Yeah, no, I mean, great point. It was every country and company need to really think about how fast things can change,
Exactly.
as you say, both
Exactly.
regulatory and other issues. Okay, so you're a telecom company. Why were you chosen to do sovereign AI for Canada?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'll be brutally honest here. We kind of fortuitously stumbled into this. TELUS has had a long history of being very progressive in using AI. We've been using it for over 15 years. If you think of just predictive models and traditional machine learning, we've had a lot of that running our business and core business mission critical systems for years and years. And then in the last 3-4 years, when generative AI came in the scene, we leaned really heavily into it. And as of today, we have 70,000 team members that are actively using and very fluent with generative AI. We have about over 50,000 custom co-pilots that are written by our own team members using it. We have many customer-facing deployments of it. And so what we were hitting internally is we started hitting that constraint on GPU compute.
Mm-hmm.
So we were starting to find that for all our workloads, we were being held back because we couldn't find the GPU compute to run our workloads. And we were relying on some of our partners, and again, they didn't have the availability, and they would direct us to other jurisdictions, which we couldn't do for regulatory reasons. And so then we decided to control our own destiny. We decided to just go build our own AI factory, and initially it was just for our own consumption.
Right.
And then we just started realizing, we started hearing from a lot of the peers that there was this need out there, and we're like, we should open it for all. So that's kind of how we landed in it. The beauty of this is, one, why do we have the right to play? Well, we're eating our own gourmet food. We are one of the largest consumers of GPU compute in Canada, so we kind of know how to do it well.
Right.
We know how to be there and support people. But then we also own the whole value chain, because if you think about it, it's not just where the GPU compute is, but you have to think we own the nationwide network, the fiber network that connects all these businesses together and connects them to the data centers. And so we have that, all the elements you talked about. It's not just about your data center and the data, but it's all about your whole network and lineage of, from where your data is, genesis in your enterprise to where it gets processed and compute and round trip.
So in our practice, Hisham used the whole eat our own gourmet food. And I think that's one of my big aha moments, because I always said eat your own dog food. I'd rather eat gourmet food. So I
100%.
really appreciate that, and I'm going to take that and use that. So as I mentioned earlier, we've been working together for about a year, and you have a lot of exciting updates. So why don't you share some of that?
The most exciting update I have to say is our first facility that we opened in Rimouski, Quebec. We sold it out, and it was sold out in less than 6 months.
Amazing.
So
that is like
that
a
is just
huge
really
clap.
fantastic, right? Which just proved, how we are, addressing a real pain point and a real need in the market, right? So that was really fantastic. And then that facility, so now we're scrambling to build the second and third right now. So, and then the other beauty is that facility, and now the subsequent ones we're doing, it was measured and ranked by Top 500 as the fastest supercomputing and high-performance computing cluster in Canada and 78th globally. And the reason why I want to say that is because this really highlights the beauty of the partnership we have with HPE. Because what you and your team have been able to do for us is give us this cutting-edge technology and really best in class. But more importantly was the speed that we got it to market. Mm-hmm. So, it's mind-boggling. And when we tell our peers in the market how the timeline, we basically gave it a green light in April. And by September, this whole cluster was live. And that was from procuring all the supply chain, to bringing it in, to installing it, to configuring it, to get everything up and running. And so truly a tremendous feat. And, huge thanks to the HPE team on this, and upwards and onwards, right, with all the other facilities we're building in the new AI factories.
No kidding. Congratulations. That is a great story. And if anybody is part of buying AI infrastructure right now, the lead times for a supply chain can be quite lengthy. So serendipity kind of worked, and we were able to get that all together, and super excited about getting that system up and going.
The only catch now is because you have that, our bar is set to higher expectations, right?
I know.
And so
it is
only
so
4
true.
months or less to everything else we want, right?
And yes, they're pressuring us big time. So yes, okay. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm telling my team we'll figure this out. So another really cool thing about the TELUS system is about some of the stuff you're doing with energy efficiency. So talk to me why this system is unique.
Yeah, so TELUS has always had a long history of social purpose and being, ecologically responsible. And so all our existing facilities, so the one that's in Rimouski, Quebec, and the other one we're building in Kamloops, I'm very proud of. It's all run by 99% renewable energies and clean energy.
Right.
And then the facilities themselves run on 98% free cooling. So what that means is, we have the beauty of Canada being a cold country, so we can leverage that climate. But it really means that for 98% of the year, we're not having to do any mechanical cooling, and we can rely on the environment. And so you think about that footprint and what it does, and the stigma that a lot of these AI factories have in terms of how bad they may be for the environment. We really want to change that narrative, and we are doing that. And then what's interesting, you see probably in the picture here, so this will be the one of the facilities we're going to be building in downtown Vancouver. And it's 100 megawatts in that facility. And then the beauty here is, so it's going to still have the 99% renewable energy, still do the 98% kind of free cooling, but we're also going to say all the excess heat that comes off those GPUs, we're working with District Energy, and so all that will be used to heat 150,000 homes in the Vancouver downtown core. So you're almost helping the community around you. And the other, nice innovation, if you look at that, this building is going to be right next to the stadium, which is BC Place. And Vancouver is a very rainy city. So we got a lot of rain during the year, and that roof collects a lot of water. Well, guess what? We can harvest all that water, and that could feed the water that we use to do liquid cooling in the data center. So we're really trying to lead and show by example of how you can build these AI factories, but really have a very responsible ecological footprint.
And it's so cool. You're going to be in downtown Vancouver,
Yeah.
and it's a really cool building. We get to see it on our screens. So, what more? So we talked a lot about the infrastructure and the buildings. So, but what are your users doing on it? What are some of the use cases?
Yeah, I think so. We've been really surprised by how broad the spectrum of users became. I mean, we thought initially it just might be only government or banking, but we've really been surprised of how broad the spectrum is. So we see we've got some healthcare companies and healthcare startups, and they're using it to train and do inference and really help deliver better healthcare and healthcare outcomes.
Cool.
We've had the startup ecosystem. A lot of Canadian startups have been starved from access to compute, at reasonable prices to drive, and so they've become a big cohort of our customers as well. We have general software companies, and again, they're just looking for GPU compute. I mean, it's a
Right.
scarcity problem, and so they're looking at it. Another very interesting one is we're working with some indigenous communities and organizations, and it's a very interesting mission because they are actively training models to be respectful and sensitive to a lot of the indigenous cultures and norms and rights. And so that's something really proud to be able to do that and support.
Yeah.
It's
so important.
And then you have the usual gamut of professional services firms, financial institutions, and so it's been exciting just to see the breadth, right, and all the use.
Hence why it got so sold out so quickly.
Exactly.
Look at all of that.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay.
Exactly.
So very cool. I'm very excited to continue to work with TELUS. I mean, I know you're already pressuring me for faster, faster, faster. We're working it. Thank you so much
Thank you
for
for
coming
having
up and sharing your story.
Thank you.
It's great. So, I mean, I love that 99% renewable energy story. I mean, that's just great. Not all of us can live in the cool climates, as we're down in Vegas, but some of this other work that they're doing would be maybe applicable to you. So please go talk to Hisham after this session. Okay, my next guest is from HLRS. Now, this is a long-time traditional supercomputing customer at the High Performance Computing Center in Stuttgart, Germany. And we have recently collaborated on an AI factory to advance Europe's AI mission. So please join me in welcoming Managing Director, Dr. Bastian Koller. Sebastian, it's not working. We're not clicking. There we go. So you're talking about just the EU AI requirements. I talked about some of the constraints. So talk to me about the EU AI requirements for you.
So surprisingly, they're similar to what you said, or let's say showed before, the 5 imperatives. So Europe, let's say, was, as several parts of the world, let's say, thrown into this AI business when, let's say, things like ChatGPT and everything popped up. Now everybody wanted to do AI, and obviously we had to do something. So the idea was, how can our, let's say, companies, startups, SMEs, big industry, the academia, public government, so all the groups which might benefit from this really benefit and can boost their performance and competitiveness in a better way by utilizing AI. Now in Europe, there's a certain trend for sovereignty. So people are now looking for, let's say, own chip design, own chip, let's say, development. But it's not only about chip, it's about the software, and the data has to be protected. And again, this is what we had before. Somehow there is this drive for independence. So yes, we want to have something sovereign, but obviously it's hard to build this for a moment together, let's say, with common things, because we are not yet far there. So that's why there was the mission started for the AI mission of the European Commission to install and implement the AI factories as a point, let's say, now to onboard the industry, the startups, SMEs, the public, all the others, really to, on one hand, provide them the resources. So like local systems, really ensuring the security and reliability of the data. On the other hand, also, let's say, providing services around this. So even to help those people using the AI factories also to get familiar with the EU AI Act, etc. And to be honest, this is something which is not a trivial thing in most of the cases. Yeah.
Definitely. Yes, I mean, HLRS is unique in the sense that it's a research, but it's also supposed to support the local enterprise, so businesses. So you're deploying the AI factory. You were chosen. It was a very competitive process, and HLRS was chosen. How are you addressing the European Union's needs for a sovereign AI factory?
So we're installing now the system, and the system, let's say, has a nice name, which is called Hammerhai. So looking at the audience, how many people speak German here?
There you go.
Okay,
Few Germans.
Don't spoil anything to your neighbor, please. So Hammerhai, there's some gossip around how the name came in. Let's say one part is simply, let's say, that we took a hammer and, let's say, tried to hit AI hard, which is not true. The second rumor is that we have a colleague called Nikolai Hammer, that we dedicated it to him. He's very proud on this, but it's also not true. So what we did is, to be honest, we did a very, very exciting weekend, our colleagues and myself, to find a proper name with AI in it, which was not yet used or copyrighted. So we came up at the end with the Hammerhai, and this is the hammerhead shark. So it's the German word for hammerhead shark. And to be honest, we found that it's a highly intelligent shark, so much more intelligent than the other sharks, which I would not compare, let's say, the AI community in Europe like a shark bazaar or something like this, but I think it fits very well.
Okay, so let's see. I think we're going to show this shark.
Yeah.
So it looks like a friendly shark, but it does have teeth.
No.
So.
We call it a friendly shark from the neighborhood.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So, and then this Hammerhai is now, let's say, established. As I said, one thing, having the resources there, so giving people access to state-of-the-art resources in a secured environment. So we are ISO certified. We are certified also for European standards. So this is something that the industry needs to use it. And it's really thought for operations also here. So not just research, but really operations. We provide it in a way that is compliant with the EU regulations. And again, it should cover the whole life cycle. So not only just doing training or not just doing inferencing, but also helping the people to work with the data management, collecting data, setting up a data lab for let's say, our main focus areas with our manufacturing, engineering, but also global challenges. And by that, we can provide a national and also European AI factory. It's made in the frame of the European Commission. We have funding from the European Commission, but also from the national funding bodies. And same way, let's say, as we now set it up with the system itself, we also set up the data lakes for that to be sure that the industry is coming there and can have trust, let's say, in what we provide them.
Great.
Yeah.
So you've got the constraints of the European Union and what you have to do there. But, you know, this is really for your industrial user base and the researchers. And so who's going to benefit with this? What are some of the users and examples of use cases?
So coming from history, and I said this before, let's say we have a certain focus here. So in Germany, you have 2 AI factories, and we are focusing on the engineering manufacturing part. As I said, also global challenges, but it's not yet that of interest for industry. However, let's say Stuttgart is an automotive place. So we were growing up there, and that's also where, let's say, our relationship with industry comes from, that we started in 1996 to work with industry, again, on an operational level. These car manufacturers really have big challenges now in the change, let's say, to alternative engines, etc. And they are very interested, let's say, in working with us now. And to be honest, the machine is not there, but my feeling, it might already, let's say, be taken over by everyone because people are really queuing in there. And there's a vast interest, really, to utilize such a system and to avoid that they all have to invest themselves in such a system per se. So they want, obviously, to accelerate innovation, let's say, for the new kind of engines, but also, let's say, for the autonomous driving. Big part here is we have a company where we're working now, let's say, we prepare them to utilize the system once it's there. And what they want to do is like to have something like a digital twin, which helps them their customers to test new ways of autonomous driving, etc. We have also, let's say, interactions with a company doing robotics. So some might have seen, let's say, some announcement from a German robotics company. I cannot say the name now, but just look for it. But it's very important for us because this is something where we can work with the sensor data and make the things much more intelligent. And this is really something very impressive and going forward. So to be honest, I think we will not be bored when the system is there. We will rather be challenged a lot, but I'm really looking forward to that.
It's going to be like TELUS. You're going to have it sold out. So how will you further advance the efforts with Hammer High?
Yes. So on one thing, and you see, let's say on this picture here, the picture of our new building. We're building now a new building, not for the Hammer High only, but as we have an outdated data center, and Hammer High will be part of that. So it's also about reuse of waste heat, etc. So very important for us, again, with the environmental certification. We try to do the best what we can do, let's say, within the budget that we have, obviously. But the idea is to have it, or to establish Hammer High together with our partner HPE as a big pillar of innovation in Europe. So it should be a starting point, a showcase, and a success story, really, to show how can you set up such a system in a dedicated environment and make it available for the industry. Again, we are doing this since years with HPC systems. For AI, we learned a lot because the AI community has different demands, and this is now where my job is to bring together, let's say, my operations people and the demands of the AI people, which usually don't fit together, to be honest. But this is exactly when we make this happen, and again, with you guys. And the good thing is that with HPE, we don't have just, let's say, a relationship like, okay, we need a machine, here it is, good luck. But we have also, let's say, a lot of collaboration together with that. And the collaboration will be centered around the needs of the users, which is very important. By that, I think we can move forward, we can increase and improve the service portfolio which we are giving there. We can help to unlock here new capabilities. Again, we start with a system. System will evolve somehow automatically. And at the end, let's say, so we have one commitment, big commitment, is that we regularly will release success stories. So there's no excuse for us that people come here and say, can I use it? Yes, and they run away because we are so bad. So we have to be good, we have to be excellent, and provide solutions, not only the system, as I said, the services, so I call it the solution area, for the needs of these communities.
And I think that's a great encapsulation of what the AI factory is. It's a solution that you're providing to the user,
Definitely.
and that's so important. So it was great. I'm super excited to go visit Hammer High when we get this all up and running and to see all the great research that's done on it.
Looking forward for the collaboration.
Yeah. Okay. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I have another guest to bring up, and this is again with the Sovereign AI strategy. This one's in the US, so we have Canadian, we have German, and now we're going to talk about the University of Utah, which is advancing their AI strategy, working with us on an AI factory. So please join me in welcoming University Senior Director for Research and Data, Dr. Bill Miller. So we've been working together on your AI factory.
You have.
But let's step back and say, so Utah is pretty advanced as having their own AI strategy. So tell us about Utah's AI strategy.
So you mentioned it yourself about what's going on in the federal space, right? You mentioned the Genesis mission. There's also the NSF's National AI Research Resource. So there's a lot of push at the federal level for enabling AI capabilities broadly. And you said it was expensive, and it is. And that means that not everybody can easily afford that. Utah is really moving out very strongly in that space. So we have a long tradition of high-performance computing at the University of Utah, and we also serve other institutions. We have a state that the governor has a pro-AI initiative to bring up AI into the whole community and make sure that everybody is aware, a lot of workforce development. So that was the backdrop to want to then take it to the next level. And there's a little bit of competition going on between the states, as you know. There's Empire AI in New York, and there's Florida, and there's a number of other states that are moving out, realizing that at the state level, they really have to move forward on AI. And so Utah has taken a big step there. We also have Utah's very proud of its business-friendly environment. So the idea of helping startups, helping with attracting business, attracting talent, bringing talent to Utah, but also training talent locally, that's really important here, and that's part of what we're doing. So it's very important aspects of Utah's strategy.
That's broad. It's
It is
very
broad.
big strategy.
It's a lot to manage.
So I love the AI strategy. So why did they invest in Sovereign AI Factory?
That's a great question. I think you do have a lot of choices. I think the calculus came down to the fact that AI is moving so quickly. You've made this point very clearly. Antonio this morning made it in spades. So speed and scale are really a key factor. At the same time, we really want to access advanced infrastructure now so that we could build it ourselves. We could do that. We have a data center of our own. But the complexities of doing this, being on the cutting edge, I think really required a solution that was much faster than that. At the same time, I think we want control. You mentioned this very clearly in your opening. It's if we're going to do healthcare with AI and use the factory for that, if we're going to do a lot of research that involves data that needs to be controlled, the IP around that is complicated. So you really want to have a system that allows you to manage that. I think the other piece of this is, yes, we could have built it. We could maybe not have gotten to the scale that we have with the AI factory, but once you did that, then you'd be basically at the dimensions you were.
Right.
It's hard to then think about the next scale. You'd have to start all over again. But with the solution that I think we're working with you and having it a colo system as opposed to on-prem, that opened up a lot of doors to think about the future. And that's important for the research space. It's important for the innovation space because without that, you're not thinking, you don't know exactly what you're going to do 5 years from now. So you're thinking about opening the doors to allow you to have that option later down the line.
Right. So yeah, we're not. This data center is not going to be on-prem, so we're going to manage it for you in this colo. So kind of a different model than what we had with both TELUS and Hammer High.
And that's a very different model for us. So if you think about high-performance computing and research computing and data, the colleagues talked about this before as well. There's a certain way of doing that over the years. You mentioned the national labs, and then moving to this sort of shifting into like fifth gear and moving really fast.
Right.
That's a little different for the cultural change. So that we can talk about that a little later. But I think it's the fact that you are presented with high performance but advanced cutting edge technologies sitting where you are allows you to say, okay, we need to be here. Now we're going to work to get to that place operationally and culturally.
Yeah, we're thrilled that we're on that journey with you. So obviously there's a lot of universities and companies in Utah. Why were you chosen, the University of Utah, to bring their sovereign AI?
Well, first, we're very proud about that.
Yeah,
we're very happy. But we are the R1 university in the state of Utah. We have a very long tradition between the Center for High Performance Computing that I direct and the Scientific Computing and Imaging Institute that has been around for a very long time. These two capabilities, these two entities have been serving the research community both at the university level, but also big users around the state, and particularly other academic institutions, for a really long time. So we have a large user base. We have a deep bench in terms of high-performance computing. Data, we're up to like 60 petabytes of capacity, which for a medium-scale high-performance computing facility is pretty good. So we do have that background. We have also, I think, as I mentioned, a lot of state capabilities. For instance, the networking in Utah is very unique. We have the Utah UETN, Utah Education and Telehealth Network, which connects the entire state. It's a state-financed capability that connects higher ed, K-12, and businesses and the federal and the state government. That's very unique in Utah, and we are leveraging that in terms of connectivity. So our relationship with UETN is that we have the Science DMZ through them that connects to Internet 2 and the DOE Energy Science Network, and we have their relationships with K-12. So I'll talk a moment about what we're doing with that, but that picture allowed the state to easily select us as the drivers for this.
Makes sense to me. So you kind of hinted at this. So talk to me about some of the use cases, both public and commercial, for this system.
Yeah. So one thing you should know is that there's a partnership aspect to this writ broadly. The state is investing in this. The legislature just made its first investment in $15 million of the total $50 million of investment. The Huntsman Family Foundation, which is an important family in Utah that supports cancer research and much research both at the university and elsewhere, they're putting in a large amount of funds from philanthropy. And then we also have a lot of in-kind sort of work that we're doing at the university and others who are leveraging capabilities that are across the state. So health science, particularly thanks to the Huntsman investment, is going to be very important to us. So working with large anonymized data sets, for example, to get better health outcomes. The basic science piece is also very, very important. Everything from engineering, ecology, astrophysics, all the things that we're already doing, but that all the faculty members are really moving towards the AI tools at scale. This is going to really transform a lot of what they're doing. Then you actually mentioned this, and I think Antonio also this morning talked about network and connectivity across data centers, but also traffic and improving sort of anomaly and intrusion detection. Let me tell you, I don't know how many folks are running HPC centers here, but is it weekly now that we're getting to have to patch our systems because AI is finding vulnerabilities?
Yep.
Thanks, Anthropic, for not putting that model out there, but other people are doing it. So the whole security picture has changed for us. And so AI is helping to find those vulnerabilities, and we're using AI to mitigate that. So that's a big area that for us is networking and cybersecurity. I'll also mention that education, I mentioned K-12, so it's easy to think of what some of the bigger users are going to do with a large system. But AI is going to empower a lot of other things. For example, in Utah, I've already had conversations with teachers and IT folks at the different districts. Some of them have a lot of data about what students are doing through their laptops and their activities. And there's a big idea about using some of that in an anonymized way to look at outcomes relative to individual students and across classrooms, and think about where you can do interventions. And so that's a use case that's kind of novel that we're going to try to do. Lastly, I mentioned business. Business is very important, enabling startups to have easy access to AI at scale. That's something that we're going to start working on as we go forward.
Nice. Okay, you mentioned about your networking, but obviously managing and keeping those large systems up is really important, as I kind of preluded also in my intro. So how are you going to do that?
Well, that's a good question. So I mentioned, we have deep experience with HPC in research. We already have H200s operating on-prem. We have sort of GPU, CPU hybrid environments, data environments, and it supports broadly supports research and science. This is really a major leap up for us in a number of ways. First, focusing more on AI workloads, relatively new for the university and for the state. Secondly, we're going to be operating this system, as you mentioned, it's co-located.
Right.
So our folks are used to sort of putting stuff together themselves, connecting all the things up and getting on their hands and knees and making sure it works, replacing the memory cards. And this time they're going to get a login. And so that's just a little bit culturally different.
Yes.
But that's where a lot of the partnership part comes in. So what's also new is, I mentioned this is a statewide system. So the university is operating this on behalf of the whole state of Utah. And so we have all of these different user segments that we're going to have to manage. And that's really new for us. So that gets back to the partnership aspect that I think is really important here, and what HPE brings both technically but also in terms of expertise. Doing things at a scale, sort of Morpheus system for multi-tenancy management, to managing different projects across sort of traditional HPC, AI, bare metal versus Kubernetes for inference. All of these things are things that we've wanted to do, but we haven't had the opportunity to do at this scale. So bringing your expertise into the equation has been really important, even as we're right now in deployment. We're in deployment. We accepted the system, the physical system, but now we're getting the software stack put on.
Exactly.
Right? And so this aspect of peer expertise at scale, I think, has just been really very important for us, and we're learning together how to do this in the research space.
Yeah, I think it's exciting to just watch this come to fruition. I know we've been talking about it now that, like you say, you have the infrastructure. Now it's getting that software stack, and then it's getting the users on and seeing all the amazing work that's going to happen. So thank you so much for coming up and sharing your perspective.
Thanks, Trish.
Thanks, Phil.
Take care. Thank you.
So just close out this session, let's repeat those 5 imperatives. Architectural control, data governance, scalable performance, operational resiliency, and sovereignty of intelligence. Think about those 5 things as you're putting together your sovereign AI strategy. And these imperatives will help make sure that you keep your data either within your country boundaries or your company boundaries, making sure that it's secure and safe. Again, I'll talk about, sovereign. For me, it's very simple. Just talk about control, compliance, and security. So that's kind of the things you need to think about when you put together that whole AI strategy. Much better than just listening to me, you got to listen to some experts that are actually standing up systems that are using AI factories and the sovereign AI across the world. So it's cool. I encourage you to go talk to them and learn more about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And then I also want to make sure that you understand how HPC, and I talked about that 50 years of experience. Well, Addison Snell, the co-founder and CEO of Intersect 360 Research, I think did a really nice job of putting into a quote. And I talked about how we've been doing sovereign for a long time. So we truly have been doing it for 50 years, these large-scale systems. AI is just part of the next workload that is running on supercomputers. And that's what I'm so proud to be part of this, and it's fun to be part of this next journey of using supercomputers, going from modeling and simulation, more of those traditional workloads, now to running the diverse AI workloads of the future. So again, I encourage you to talk to our speakers. I encourage you to go on the demo on the show floor. Here's some more sessions to talk about AI, sovereign AI, quantum, and others, and then also some of the demos on the show floor. And most important, enjoy the show. Thank you.